Good evening, friends. The topic for the day is dissolution of marriage under Muslim law. Dissolution of marriage will take place by two different forms: dissolution by the act of God, dissolution by the act of parties. Dissolution of the marriage by act of God will take place when there is a death of either party to the marriage. Dissolution by act of parties under Muslim law can be broadly categorized into extrajudicial divorce and the judicial divorce. Why do we call it as extrajudicial divorce? In the case of extrajudicial divorce, there is no intervention of the judiciary at all. These types of dissolution of marriage have come into force by the customs that or the traditions or the practices that have been carried on by by the Muslims generations, and this extrajudicial divorce can be resorted or can be done by the husband, by the wife, or by mutual consent. Let us take the first one, by the husband. The husband the husband has the absolute power of divorcing his wife by the utterance of the evil word talaq, which means to release the wife from marital obligation or from the marriage. Who can pronounce talaq? Talaq can be pronounced only by a Muslim husband who is of the age of majority, 18 years, sound mind, free consent, voluntarily. He cannot be forced, coerced by anybody to utter the word talaq. But Prophet Muhammad says that it is an evil word, so it should not be uttered, or the man must desist himself from uttering the word talaq, because every time he utters the word talaq, Prophet Muhammad thinks that he will be earning the wrath of, or he'll be displeasing Lord Allah, because of which he says that talaq should not be resorted to at the flimsy excuse unless there is a justifiable excuse. Now, talaq can again be subdivided into revocable talaq and irrevocable talaq. What is the difference between revocable talaq and irrevocable talaq? Prophet Muhammad never wanted the marriage to come to an end. He wanted the marriages to continue, because of which he advocated that, or he said that, in case a Muslim husband has pronounced talaq in haste, anger, he should be allowed, and if he realizes his mistake and wants to reconcile with his wife, he must be allowed to do so. That is, he must be given a chance of continuing his marriage, because of which he supported revocable talaq, which is in the form of, or which we call under Muslim law as talaqul sunnat. There is another kind of talaq that is called irrevocable talaq or talaqul bidat. Prophet Muhammad always frowned on this kind of talaq, because he said if a person utters irrevocable talaq, even if the husband wants to reconcile with his wife, he cannot do so, because there is a requirement or the formality called haram marriage or intermediary marriage, as we have already discussed under the chapter marriage. So Prophet Muhammad does not support talaqul bidat, he supports talaqul sunnat. Now talaqul sunnat can again be subclassified into talaq ahsan, that is AHSAN, which is called the most proper form of talaq, and then talaq hasan, that is HASAN, which is the proper form of talaq. Why do we say talaq hasan as the most proper? Under this, a Muslim husband will utter the evil word talaq only once during the period of tur. What is this period of tur? It is a period between two menstruation cycles of a wife. He will utter the word talaq, And if he does not go back to her within 3 months, that is, as we have already discussed, once there is a dissolution of marriage, or once the husband utters talaq, she has to observe a period of iddat for 3 months. Now, if the husband wants to go back to her when she is observing iddat, the husband can always reconcile with her, and he can get back to his wife, and he can carry on his marital life as if he did not utter talaq. And of course, this is subject to the payment of reasonable, fine, because he has uttered the word evil talaq and he wants to reconcile with his wife. But he can still do so. The another kind of talaq, that is a proper, that is talaq hasan, Hasan. There is a triple pronouncement or three times pronouncement. How does it operate? The husband makes a first pronouncement of talaq during the period of tur, one pronouncement. Subsequent month, during the same time, he makes a second pronouncement. That is, second time he says talaq. And when he tells the second time, he has to make an express declaration that he has already made the first pronouncement, and in furtherance of the first pronouncement he is making the second pronouncement. And the next month again, that is during the third month, he has to make the final pronouncement of talaq. That is, he has to say that I have already made first two pronouncements and now I am making the final pronouncement of talaq, and she has to observe iddat for 3 months, followed by the completion of the third pronouncement. In this case, he has a time of 3 months to get back to his wife. That is, once he makes his first pronouncement, before making the third pronouncement, he can get back to his wife, or even after making the second pronouncement, he can still get back to his wife. But once he makes the third pronouncement of talaq, that becomes the final, and the Muslim wife will have to observe it that after that he cannot get back to his wife, he cannot reconciliate. That is, in the revocable form of talaq, a chance is always extended to the husband to reconcile or to go back to his wife in case he wants to. Let's go to the third one, that is talaq bidat, which is an irrevocable talaq which never enjoyed the support of Prophet Muhammad. What is this irrevocable talaq? A Muslim husband, in one single breath, he says talaq, 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 and there ends the matter. Marriage comes to an end immediately, followed by which the Muslim wife, will have to observe a period of iddat for 3 months. And here there is no question of reconciliation at all between the husband and wife, because once and for all the marriage comes to an end. Now, let's go back to there are other kind of constructive talaq, a constructive divorce by the husband, illa, that is ILA, which means the husband will take an oath that he will not have sexual intercourse with his wife. And when he says wife, he has to specifically say whose wife it is, which wife it is, whether it is the first wife or the second wife or the third wife or the fourth wife. That is, in the case of illa, the Muslim husband will take an oath that he will not have sexual intercourse with his wife anymore, followed by which she has to observe iddat, and the dissolution of marriage becomes operative. And the next one is zihar, that is Zihar, which means that he compares his wife to a lady who is within the prohibited degree of relationship. That is, he can say that my wife is like my mother, my wife is like my sister, my wife is like my mother-in-law, my wife is like the sister of my mother-in-law, or my wife is like my stepmom. All these ladies will fall into the category of prohibited degree of relationship. The moment he compares his wife to a lady who is within the prohibited degree of relationship, the dissolution of marriage becomes operative and she ceases to be his wife, followed by which she has to observe a period of iddat for 3 months. Now, Let's move on to the dissolution of marriage by wife.